Hello everyone. When learning about the technologies related to data centers, you will often encounter some terms. Now, let me introduce them briefly. Data center. A DC implements centralized data processing, storage, transmission, switching, and management in a physical space, for example, in an equipment room. Key devices in a DC include servers, network devices, and storage devices. Infrastructures such as the power supply, cooling, firefighting, and monitoring systems are key components. Point of delivery. For convenient resource pooling in a DC, the DC can be divided into one or more physical partitions. Each partition is called a pod. A pod is a basic deployment unit of a DC, and a physical device belongs to only one pod. Virtual data center. A VDC is a collection of resources available for an organization. Such resources include computing, storage, and network resources. Tenant. A tenant is created and assigned by the system administrator. The tenant is the owner and administrator of a VDC. Different VDCs belong to different tenants. In the public cloud scenario, the system administrator can define VDCs and assign administrators for the VDCs. Only the administrator of a VDC can manage resources in the VDC. In the private cloud scenario, a VDC can be defined flexibly and allocated to a service, application, or department. The system administrator can manage resource quotas for services, applications, and departments of an enterprise through VDCs. Virtual private cloud. A VPC uses resources of a VDC. A VPC belongs to only one VDC, but one VDC can have multiple VPCs. Each VPC is a security zone and corresponds to one service, application, or department. A VPC provides isolated VMs and network environments to isolate networks of different services or departments. Each VPC provides diversified separate services, including VFW, VLB, security groups, EIP, IPsec, VPN, and NAT. A VPC provides multiple networking modes, such as directly connected networks, routing networks, and internal networks. Let's continue to learn about the elements in a VPC. A vRouter is the gateway of a service subnet. It is used for layer 3 communication between subnets. A VPC can have only one vRouter. Network refers to a layer 2 network and typically contains only one subnet. In sharing mode, the network can contain multiple subnets. However, this element is presented in the native OpenStack service model. A subnet is used for isolating layer 2 broadcast domains. Each subnet corresponds to one network segment. Layer 3 gateways in subnets of one VPC are deployed on the same vRouter. Devices in a subnet or different subnets can communicate with each other by default. Security groups can be configured for isolation. A VFW is located at the edge of a VPC. It provides security access control and access services from external networks to a VPC. A VFW supports the following features: FW, EIP, SNAT, and IPsec VPN. A VLB delivers load balancing between internal servers and can provide multiple listeners. You can apply for different listeners for different services. A VPC can be regarded as a virtual container. In this container, logical elements such as vRouter, subnet, VFW, and VLB are orchestrated by the tenant administrator based on service requirements. For example, how many network segments are required, how many VMs are connected to each network segment, and which security policy and loading policy needs to be configured for VM traffic. VPCs are isolated from each other by default. Additionally, multiple logical networks can share the same physical network. FusionSphere, OpenStack, and AC-DCN have different logical abstraction models for data centers. FusionSphere is based on open source OpenStack. Therefore, they share many common basic concepts. This figure illustrates the internal service model and deployment of FusionSphere. I will introduce the pod, VDC, and VPC. A pod is a physical unit. For example, a fabric network can be regarded as a pod, which is a basic deployment unit for carrying services. A set of resources can be deployed in one or more pods, and each pod can carry multiple resources. A VDC is a resource unit. It supports cross-pod deployment. Tenants lease resources based on VDCs. A VPC is a service unit. It supports cross-pod deployment. Different VPCs of a tenant can be deployed on different pods. Each VPC has a vRouter. The vRouter is represented as a VRF on the switch. In the internal service model and deployment relationship of OpenStack, I will introduce the pod and project. A pod is a physical unit. For example, a fabric network can be regarded as a pod, which is a basic deployment unit for carrying services. A set of resources can be deployed in one or more pods, and each pod can carry multiple resources. A project is a resource unit. It supports cross-pod deployment. Tenants lease resources based on projects. In a project, service units are deployed with vRouter as the core. A service unit supports cross-pod deployment. Service units of a tenant can be deployed on different pods. The service model of Huawei Agile Controller DCN includes tenant, VPC, logical router, logical switch, logical FW, and logical LB. In the Agile Controller DCN, an administrator can authorize a certain number of VPCs to tenants and authorize usage quotas to logical routers, switches, FWs, and LBs. Logical routers, switches, FWs, and LBs provide the fabric as a service. That is, the network is abstracted to multiple services. In the Agile Controller DCN, the logical router corresponds to the vRouter of the cloud platform. The logical switch corresponds to the network or subnet of the cloud platform. And the logical FW and LB correspond to the VFW and VLB of the cloud platform, respectively. The endpoint defined in the Agile Controller DCN is used to simulate a logical access point connected to the logical switch, which can be a VM or a physical server. The Agile Controller DCN allows the administrator to configure the access information of the endport. In the subsequent video, I will introduce the overall service process and automation process of the cloud network integration scenario. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time.